Imagine, if you could have a superpower, what would it be? Flying, super strength, X-ray vision, leap over tall buildings, for the guys as we get older, never-ending, luxuriously thick hair. And look, we've all thought about it, haven't we? And look, it would be absolutely awesome. But here's the thing, we're all born with an amazing superpower. And in these very business as unusual times, I could not think of a better superpower to have. And that is our creative, curious, and imaginative mind. And in this mind, anything could happen. So let's do a little bit of time travel. I want you to go way back to our childhood. Young kids are hardwired with a different what's possible framework to adults. Where we see problems, they see opportunities. Where we see clutter, they see castles. Nothing is off limits. We're all born with this creative, curious, imaginative drive. We could see things that weren't there and go and make them happen. And as I said, it's something that we all have in abundance. Because have you ever heard this conversation at a dinner party? What's the matter with old Giles over there? Don't you know? He was born uncreative, poor thing. Of course you haven't. It just doesn't happen. We were born creative. We're born imaginative. We're born to have these big, inspiring ideas all the time. And let's talk about that notion of the big, inspiring idea. Isn't that what we want? Sort of that big inspiration moment out of the blue that will make us or our company a multi-billionaire. So it's sort of like, I was just wandering down the street, just being as boring and as uninspiring as I could be, and all of a sudden, boom! From that moment on, when I had that big inspiring idea, everything changed. I suddenly lost 10 kilos. My kids always behaved, and I had 6 covers on the front of Entrepreneur Monthly magazine, and always in my brand new Ferrari. But look, that's just not how things work. One big killer idea doesn't come from nowhere. One big killer idea comes from thousands of little creative ideas. Those little creative moments drive the big creative moments. Now imagine if those moments were going off all over your organization, virtually or otherwise. Imagine there are simple, quick and easy ways to delight your customers, develop great products and services, and continually be ahead of the game. Well, how the hell do you make that happen, you may ask? That's a very good question, and I'm glad you asked. The very first thing we need to do is take off our blinkers. And look, let's do a little bit of Brain Basics 101 to kick this off. Our brain works very hard for us. Things happen in our life, we have these experiences, and our brain labels them and files them away to use in the future. So thanks, brain, you're being really helpful. Like as an example, when we're young, we might have been tottering around the house. We look up on the stove and we see a frying pan. It smelt so nice, and with all the bacon, and it looks so shiny, we reach out and grab it. It burns our hand. So look, after mum's wiped away the tears and put a little Bob the Builder band-aid on our hand, our brain labels that and files that away as something like, frying pan hurt or similar. So the next time we're walking through the house, we see the frying pan, we go to reach it, but brain goes, and we just smile and keep on walking. So thanks, brain, you're being really cool. So this continues on throughout our lives. Things happen and our brain labels and files them away and stores them for future use. And look, this is great because it makes our life more productive, more easy. We waste less time. Because you don't want to be brainstorming, say, how to put on your underpants each and every morning. You just want to whack them on and get out ready for work. So brain, you're being really cool. You make our life fantastic. We have to recognize, however, that the classification system we have doesn't always work for every situation. In this most business as unusual environment where things are constantly changing at speed, we need to realize we might need to open up and create new files to adapt and thrive. So how do you shift this? How do you easily create new files in these creative moments? The number one thing I want you to remember is great things in equals great things out. Brilliant artists, chefs, architects, designers, illustrators have known this for years. Every time you do something new, you create new files. Every time you open a new report, read a new book, connect with someone outside of your industry, whatever that may be, you take in much more stimulation. So that gives you a lot more resources to go to next time fresh thinking is required. And let's have a look at two different people to see what a difference that this can make. First, we'll look at Robert. Robert has held the same job for about 30 years and goes the same way to work pretty much each and every day. He doesn't have any real hobbies outside of work. You'd be surprised how often I hear this. And Sundays are always pretty similar, a big sleep in and then a bit of Sunday sport in the afternoon. Imogen, by contrast, Imogen's had a bunch of different jobs, some of them overseas. She makes sure her family takes her full holidays each and every year, always going to a new location. She's a voracious reader, into yoga, and each year she likes to take on a new challenge. This year, she's taking on salsa, even if it is over Zoom. Who do you think has a better mindset for ideas and inspiration? If you said Imogen, you'd be right. She has a lot more variety in her life than Robert, and as such, she has a lot more places to go to when fresh thinking and inspiration is required. She's tapped into her superpower. Now that doesn't mean Rob isn't a great person. Rob is a reliable legend in his organisation. But Imogen, she's that go-to person when fresh thinking is required. Rob, however, can have the same mindset too, and he doesn't need to be huge sweeping changes. Let's look at if Rob decides to change things up a little, what might happen. Rob decides to start reading new books, so he starts to take in new information. He opens his eyes and he looks around the house. He sees a bunch of unfinished jobs. As he's doing those jobs, he's developing new skills which are making him think and look at the world a little bit differently. He decides to use his regained commute time to listen to a different podcast each and every morning. As he's going throughout the day, a thought from that podcast keeps playing over and over in his head. He writes it down, musing, I'd never thought of it just like that. Later in the day, Rob shares that idea with some teammates and they discuss it excitingly. Watch out, Rob, you're starting to develop your creative superpower, your amazing, imaginative, curious mind. Rob's lack of fresh thinking wasn't about the amount of time he had, it was about how he spent that time. We all have the same 24 hours each and every day. There will always be breaks in the day, coffee stops, going for a walk outside. Imagine what we could do if we just open our eyes and our mind with all of that time. So you can see how easy it is if we change the little things. How about we look at something much bigger? I want you to take yourself back to one of those great overseas trips that you had, and look, they seem a long way away at the moment. And look, also if you have kids, go back to pre-kids because you had a lot more free time on these trips. And if you don't have kids, travel as soon as you can. Now when we travel, from the moment we land, wherever we're going, our senses are on overdrive. We arrive at our accommodation, we get out the airport, and we notice the air smells different. It even feels different. As we start to walk around, our eyes are on overdrive. We notice each and everything around us, things in shop windows, the tablecloths at cafes, what people are saying, what people are eating, even the cobblestones on the street. And for some reason, we can't take photos, we can't stop taking photos of windows and doors. And you get it, you understand what I'm talking about. When we travel, our mind is on overdrive. Imagine if we had traveler's eyes when we're back in our world. Because what I generally see is people just wandering around like this, looking at the phone and occasionally needing to dodge other people's feet. Sorry. Just because times are different doesn't mean that we can't look at the world with traveler's eyes. This will generate fresh thinking in any space, work or otherwise. When we open our eyes, we see opportunities that other people miss. We see opportunities that we didn't even know existed. And in the process, we start to feed our superpower, our creative, curious and imaginative mind. And nothing could be more important right now. If we give in to what we were born to do, it's ever so easy. If we open our eyes and take off our blinkers, we start to feed our creative, curious and imaginative mind. And in the current environment we're in, that's the best resource we have. You've got this, and I wish you and your amazing superpower all the best. My name's Simon Banks. Let's build a more creative and curious world.